Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
All right, so I'm really excited to welcome the program, Noviolent Bulawayo. Thanks for calling, author of We Need New Names. I appreciate you calling.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. It's great to have you here, and you said so far you're excited to be at the book fair. You just can't wait to be involved in what you're participating in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I just spoke to college students yesterday about my book, and today I'm on a panel with Ruth Freeman and Daniel Alacon, and those are my two events. But I'm hoping to catch some other interesting events later on.
Cool. And it's always awesome because there's so many people you want to connect with and learn from at the book fair, and that's what's so bringing you all together in one place at one time. The brilliant people, you learn so much, don't you?
Absolutely, and it's important for me. I mean, this is my first novel, and I'm just starting out. I'm right at the beginning of my career, so I'm quite excited about learning from people.
And that's the great thing, Eric, about it, is that all these authors are willing to learn, want to learn from others, and are taking that opportunity to connect with all of them, right, Eric?
I know, and learning all their story, learning where they're getting their start, and some folks on their first novel, some are on their 20th, and it's really interesting to hear their stories and hear their passions and where they come up with the ideas for these great books. I was reading a little bit of bio on the book, and it's about a 10-year-old who basically relocates, journeys out of Zimbabwe to America.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little bit more about the story.
This story was inspired by the last 10 years, the recent 10 years of Zimbabwe's history, where the country sort of fell apart due to failure of leadership. Darling, my protagonist, and her friends are growing up in this shanty town called Paradise, and their life is basically that of hardship and struggle. But at the same time, they are very funny and positive 10 to 12-year-olds who are able to survive their circumstances, even though they are tough. And in the midst of it all, Darling is able to escape to the U.S. to live with an aunt. But she gets there to discover that the American dream is not as rosy as it's supposed to be.
And that's got to be surprising in a lot of ways. The suffering that people have gone through, and then they come to the United States, and it's not as a bed of roses. And describe some of the things that people have to go through when that happens, when they have to relocate like this.
One of the things that Darling is dealing with is that she cannot go back home to visit because her papers have expired, and that's sort of the plight of her aunt who's taking care of her. And there's also an old guy who's at the end of his life, basically, and he's never been able to go back home, again, because he doesn't have papers. And he ends up dying in the U.S. and leaves instructions that, people take his ashes back to his country, but then the person who's entrusted with the ashes still has no papers. And beyond that, Darling is dealing with culture shock, everything from snow, having to adjust to a new language, And I was talking to, like I said, college students yesterday, and it was amazing how some could relate to Darling. So I feel like it's a book that, whose issues people can relate to, especially those who identify with the story.
Definitely, and it's something that, Eric, a lot of people that come to this country have a lot of things they have to deal with, and a lot of getting acclimated to many different things that they didn't expect.
Exactly, and my family, I'm second generation born here. They came over from Poland and Germany, and it's amazing. There's a picture painted, that America is this lake grand of opportunity and freedom, and you get here and realize that it's really not that much different than anywhere else. There is some more opportunity, but there's also equal hardship involved as well.
I know, and I think it's a narrative that sometimes Americans don't get because they see their country in one specific way, and yet there are all these experiences around them. So I just wanted to bring those voices to center and have people talk about what it means to be in this space, whether you're American or not.
And I think that's a great story that really needs to be told because we still have such a high rate of immigration from other countries and folks looking to start over and have a better life or just a change of scenery. And I think it's a very important story. It needs to be told.
Yeah, definitely. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, and that's part of why I wrote it. And it's, I was at, speaking of colleges, I'm finding myself visiting and talking to young people. I was talking to a student from, I think he's from China, and he was like, this is the first book I've read and finished. But it's also a book that has allowed me to sort of see myself in it. So I'm hoping it continues to speak to a demographic that may not necessarily be interested in reading to begin with.
Yeah, most definitely, and it's something that you see different people and their interest in what they develop. What do you think is the biggest surprise of people who have to relocate to other countries and learn about it? The language is one thing, but I guess also the customs is a difficult transition as well.
Absolutely, the customs and the language. I think it also depends on where people are. For somebody who doesn't speak English, the surprise is that you really can't do anything without that language. For somebody who's coming from a warm climate, the surprise might be that, if you are living in a cold climate, you have to deal with 5-6 months of snow, as was the case with me in Michigan and upstate New York, where I went to school. For some, it might be the different, cultural aspects, from the fact that you really sometimes you don't get to see your neighbors and hang out with them like you do in your native native country. So I think it's a range of experiences.
Well, absolutely, Eric. That's not a surprise at all, is it?
No, and being here in South Florida, where I'm based, there's such a high transition of we have a very high immigration population from Caribbean and in Miami, especially Cuba and different areas of that nature. So it's interesting to see how the communities come together to try to support each other because, like you said in the book, it's not always as easy as it seems, and the folks that are here or from here kind of come together to support the ones that come in and offer that level of support and assistance.
I think that's very important. I think that's the beauty of the U.S. in a way, even with all the challenges that, you will find people who are coming from somewhere else, so you're never alone. And the support systems that people kind of forge and set up do help.
Absolutely, and what you've been getting great feedback from college students, but I guess being able to be at the book fair and now discuss the book with other fans and and conversate with them, that's got to be great to hear. Hey, I'm glad you wrote about this. I'm glad you've talked about the whole process of the relocation, and especially at a time where you had to leave the country and the homesickness and all these different things and people that relate to it in a way, right?
Absolutely, it's wonderful. I mean, writing is such a solitary activity, and you don't quite get the value of what you are doing until a reader walks up to you and says and tells you how much they connect or how much what you say kind of means to them. And I'm really enjoying that.
It's a process, and it's a fun thing. And you said for your first book, you're just excited and enthused to be here and ready to get started being involved and talking to people and meeting new people and things like that. And I think that's so key. One other question I think in the whole process is that talking about Zimbabwe and talking about what happened in Zimbabwe, you want people not to forget this, do you?
I want them not to forget, and at the same time, I want Zimbabweans, especially young Zimbabweans, to sort of understand where we're coming from so that we don't find ourselves there. And literature, of course, and art, I think, goes a long way in having people talk about things, and changing attitudes. So I'm hoping this is part of a dialogue that we're already having.
Seems like that's the key component of a lot of these authors, Eric. They want to get the message out. They want to provide a place, a forum to lead to the conversation, Eric.
Exactly. And I think that's a very key integral part. Do you have any future books planned on the same topic or similar topics?
I'm working on a collection of AIDS stories. I'm kind of interested in things that go unsaid, and for me, AIDS is one of the things that we are not talking about as much. Here in the U.S., it may be different, but where I'm coming from is there it's present and our rates are sort of high. But we're not having the kinds of necessary conversations that will help us bring our rates down and help us become a more aware and active society. So that's what I'm trying to do on my next project.
I think that's very important because it is a widely publicized topic here, I think, in the U.S., but there's so many other countries, especially Zimbabwe and other areas that are being affected, but no one's speaking up and saying anything or taking initiatives to help out.
Absolutely.
All right, so where can we find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you?
My website, www.noviolentbulawayo.com.
Fantastic. Do you have any social media that our listeners can be part of, too, to learn more about what's going on with you?
I have a Facebook page, a writer page. Unfortunately, I'm not on Twitter, but Facebook, I'm pretty active.
Well, fantastic. We'll make sure we check out, like your page, and keep up to finding out what's going on with you. And when your next book comes out, you're welcome to come on Author's Corner again. So thanks for calling, and enjoy the book fair.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.